I'm looking at their list here of their top 3s. It is long. Their bottom 2s, it is long. They really like to switch up what they're doing as the season has gone on, and I think that speaks to trying to nail down that identity that you were talking about for the Valkyries. I think the Valkyries may have found their identity before the Warriors really have.
There's potential for it, but the Warriors have versatility, I think. When they do find things that work for them, they find multiple things. Sure, we can play that early game style. Maybe we want to wait it out for that little bit of a later game style as well. We've seen them utilize sustain at certain points here in Season 8. A little bit worse on the sustain as it's seen a global nerf, but I think that the Warriors certainly have strategies that can work. It's just whether or not they want to employ them on the day of.
Yeah, fair enough. It's Yamoja, the first ban for the Valkyries, and when Neil has looked good, a lot of times it has been on that Yamoja, so that ban certainly makes sense to me. And the Valkyries really trying to focus out that duo lane, which has struggled in the early stages a decent amount. I think that these two duo lanes have both had their fair share of struggles and their fair share of shining moments. It's interesting to me that the Valkyries seem pretty focused on trying to not nail down that duo lane as their advantage point.
No, I like what the Valkyries have done so far here in the band. They're trying to really limit that early game aggression from the Oni Warriors, and when we've spoken with the Olympus Bolts or even the Solar Scarabs in the past, Zatman and Barracuda both have said, Season 8, it's a duo lane meta. Whoever controls the long lane controls the early pace of the match. Gold Furies are pretty easy to burn through. The Scorpion goes down pretty easily as well. So it makes sense to me that the Valkyries, if they are trying to go for this later game strategy, are trying to limit that early game aggression from the Oni Warriors. You can see it reflected in their bans perfectly. They're not just taking away targeted god picks, but Yamoja, Chiron, Ymir, all 3 gods that dominate the first 10 minutes of the game.
And specifically on that duo side of the map, whereas the Oni Warriors looking much more at the mid in jungle of Giannis, Loki, and Gilgamesh, taking away some of those power picks. And sure enough, the Valkyries go straight to one of Ducky's comfort picks. They top pick the Wukong, which I don't hate, but I also don't know if I love it. It's a very wait-and-see sort of selection.
It is. It's, all right, well, nothing really has a great matchup in a Sun Wukong, but Sun Wukong doesn't have really that many great matchups in of himself. I would have preferred maybe a King Arthur coming through. Ducky had alluded to the fact that he was a little bit hesitant to play against Nika's King Arthur. Well, that would have been an opportunity to make sure that that doesn't come to fruition. But with Tsukiyomi on the table as well, maybe it's a catch-20. You're going to get the Nika special one way or the other.
And Tiamat was open. That's the pick that I was thinking of whenever they locked in this Wukong. They give up the Tiamat. They let Dardes have it. If memory serves, Dardes has not looked particularly fearsome on this pick quite yet, but I don't know. That's not a risk I'm willing to take forever, right? I mean, Dardes is eventually going to start popping on gods like Tiamat. Tiamat Sobek feels like a very good top 2 here.
And it makes perfect sense. Nika has no stress on taking his pick, so even if he is worried about the King Arthur and the Tsukiyomi getting banned out in the second phase, once it rolls around to third pick, he can pick it up for himself. So instead, we see the Oni Warriors put a little bit more emphasis on Neilma's pick, and well, when Neilma's playing Sobek, it's looking pretty good for these boys.
Definitely one of the top selections there for the Warriors as this year has gone on. Neath Soul solidifies that backline here for the Valkyries. Neath has been a pick that has been consistently banned away from the Valkyries. Zeros has looked very, very comfortable on it, and it's oftentimes paired with something like that Ao Kuang in the jungle, but they don't go for it right here. Instead, they get a pick that Emilito has looked very good on in the Soul. These might be the 2 picks that Zeros and ML respectively have looked their best on so far this year.
Yeah, just consistent first bloods when Zero's been able to play this Soul pick, but now the Valkyries have really shown their hand. They're going for a consistent single target damage composition, as is the way of this pseudo double hunter, magical hunter and standard hunter for their draft so far. I would be overly surprised if we see exactly what comes through here. Oni Warriors spot that one out from a mile away, say you're not getting the Fafnir. Coerce would just work too well with this draft. Remove it from the table.
Yep, love the Fafnir ban. I think Fafnir Ao Kuang are the bans that I would expect to see here from the Warriors, just based on what the Valkyries have done with these types of compositions. Whereas on the other side, Arthur is the pick that I'm looking at that you might have to take away from Nika, but like Ducky said, you got to worry about his Tsukiyomi, you have to worry about his Kukulkan. You've got a lot of things that Nika can still pull out.
I'm actually flabbergasted that the Ao Kuang ban came through here. I know that Johnny loves that pick, and he's had great success on it in the past, but it's really putting all your eggs in that auto attack basket. Sure, Shell ate a nerf recently, doesn't have the block stacks anymore. Now it's only about 50% auto attack mitigation once you have that health shield for you. But with the composition that the Valkyries have already, I was expecting maybe an earlier game pick out of the jungle, something that can bridge this Neath and Soul into that late game phase.
Well, let's see if that's the way they decide to go. Athena is still open, certainly has fallen out of favor since her dominance in the middle of phase 1, but this is still a flex pick. You can put this support, you can put it in jungle. I don't think that this feels like a Johnny pick to me. He's usually not that facilitator role. He's trying to play gods like Set that can get in there and do the vast majority of the carrying themselves. But Athena does set up pretty well. I mean, taunt into Neath Spirit Arrow feels like a pretty strong combo.
It does, but the Geb hover, this is concerning for me if this Geb gets locked in, because that's the main weakness we saw in their last set yesterday. It wasn't that ability to transition themselves into the late game, and right now, all of Valkyrie's early game is centered around this Sun Wukong. That's their best pick for the first 15 minutes, and the Valkyries very seldom like to play through their short lane.
And it's Tsukiyomi now for Johnny, who did have a very good showing, at least through the first half of one of the games yesterday. I think that overall, Neath does scale pretty well, but she also brings more pressure than most mid lane mages. I'd expect the Valkyries to have mid pressure over the Tiamat in particular. I agree, though, this Geb pick, it's great against Serket. Typical counter matchup there. She single target CC, single target shield feels pretty good. But Geb just has so much trouble getting off the ground.
Look at is vote on this Chernobog. And Chernobog's not one that we traditionally see coming to light, but it makes perfect sense when you're dealing with the likes of a Tsukiyomi from Johnny, because he's the only hunter that doesn't have to necessarily forfeit his Aegis in order to avoid that Tsukiyomi. It's a tough situation with that
on
much
Geb
life.
in that dual lane. I don't even know how well he's doing now as we cut away just at the same time, but well down to half health there. Onto Vibe Vote, onto Rafa, and Emily, who steps up. Eats a bit of poke himself, but does have that shield to prevent some of the damage.
Seems as though Neilma is really trying to force this Geb into an awkward position. Cubo actually going to get caught out on the jump. Could be a first blood opportunity here for Johnny. He's looking to catch Cubo. Doesn't have the escape, and a root is good from Zeros. A first blood strike, and this is the first time the Valhalla Valkyries are getting this Neath mid. And we're starting to see some of the good reason why teams choose not to let Zeros have this one. Valkyries, I think that their mid-game pressure could just overwhelm that of the Oni Warriors, and Nika could actually be in some trouble right now. Will eat that World Weaver out of the Neath, but spins away underneath the tower. Ducky having already committed to the Tiger Stun off of that 72 transformations. Won't find a kill just yet.
I will say real quick on that moment, because of the fact that Will Weaver was coming in, I was expecting a bit more damage there to connect onto Nika, but the build that Zeros has gone for here, got the attack speed boots online earlier. It's not going to ton of power on that. Without Transcendent stacking online, won't do a lot. Nice blink from Rapper though as Neilmar engaged. Cubo knocked up and deleted by the Valhalla Valkyries. Dardas can only really watch on and get a bit of poke on to Ratha. Great counter initiation from Ratha there.
Cubo was not expecting.
Continues on for them. 9.5 minutes in, and a lot of focus has been around the mid lane so far this game. The side lanes have really been left unintruded on from both the junglers so far.
And it just comes down to the fact that Cubo has Purification Beads, but Purification Beads too late for Johnny. Pluck's gonna hit. Neilmont could be in some trouble though, as Tsukiyomi will commit
but Johnny
the
should
final
die.
blow, and he should go down. Poison does spread to Zeros.
It does, but Cubo's going to get out of the fight. Ducky and Nika into the fray though, and they're hunted onto Zeros. Juggled into the air by Nika. Beads forced out, and the body block from Dardas to prevent the escape route gives the kill to Nika. But Dardas is going to turn tail, being chased by another man with a tail, the monkey Ducky. He'll get the kill, and Vote swiftly swoops on him from the duo lane, and that's the power of these global rotations. Damage, but more importantly, I think it was the rotations from both those solos.
The solo lane rotations definitely seem to catch the Valkyries off
trouble.
guard, and
He's got no
Johnny,
beads.
no beads, but he does have a Geb shield, although won't be able to prevent his health bar going down. Neilmont could be in some trouble here though. Zero's looking for a little bit further commit, but they spot out Nika on the rotation. Everybody's just going to scatter.
I will say I do think Cubo could have had an opportunity for a kill there onto Johnny, but I think he was a bit worried about rotations from the mid lane or even solo that stopped him from getting further aggressive. Maybe a Belize on cooldown as Oni Warriors now start to hunt around this right-hand side of the map. Blue buff is spawning momentarily, and that's why Cubo and Neil are here. Johnny's on the way, though, and Johnny noticed just as he walked through the jungle that, nope, I am not going alone, and that's why Raph is showing his face too.
Not sure that Warriors should give this one up so easily. Johnny's beads are still down for another minute, and even with Raffer having those Geb shields, it would still...
Looking to just try and isolate people on this right side of the map, and they found Johnny here with Nika's rotation from solo. Ducky's trying to get in here, but Vote on the way too, and Johnny realizes he's all alone. Great World Weaver coming in through from Zeros, a little bit too late now, and Ducky, who has rotated a little bit late to that fight after Nika pushed it in, managed to find a bit of trouble for himself and has to use his ultimate. All 5 of the Warriors on the right-hand side, and they're going to go for the Pyromancer.
Just too much of a swarm there from the Oni Warriors. Even if Zeros connected with that World Weaver a little bit sooner, it wouldn't have made that much of a difference. The only thing it prevents is Ducky trying to get aggressive with the steal. Instead, he loses Purification Beads in the process. Could be initiated on, might be forced into the cloud, and
he's got no ult. He just used it in the last combat, and Cubo will slip the noose there. Left-hand side, Amelito does at least get that tier 1 tower. Now he's going to take a fight with Vote, knowing Vote doesn't have his ultimate available. But Amelito can't thread those basics enough to cause problems for him. Instead, he'll return to this purple buff for a second. And Vote's got a bit of a decision. Minion wave or buff. However, Amelito doesn't know where the Oni Warriors are, so he's going to be playing this careful.
Vote is actually getting the much better end of Amelito here. Really nice placement on that Crystallized Curse. And the main issue is that Vote even opted for the Aussie as that third item. He has having the opportunity to actually continue farming throughout that duration. Just gave him a small enough advantage. And you give Nika anything, and he's just going to run away with it. And
look at this, though, the Gold Fury. Yeah, and Rafa's here, but what can Rafa really do? He needs backup from his team, trying to keep eyes on. Would look for a blink, but nice use of the Beast minion there from Dardes, just to put Rafa in combat so he doesn't have that blink opportunity. But it looks like Warriors are kind of grouping towards mid again at the moment as Nika is here. Pluck onto Johnny does connect, a good beads from him and a shield after the fact there to make sure that Johnny doesn't go for a wild ride. But a big group and a big blinking on Zeros, and he's up, down, has to beads away, flip away from the damage from Dardes too. Cubo's round the back though, just keep an eye on him, he's going to lurk as Nika still frontline. Vote swoops on into the front side. Rafa going to try and tank up what he can, but again he gets pulled by Neil Marr. Neil should go down in trade as Ducky comes in though, and they're looking for the Moonlight on towards Dardes on the backside of this engagement, but the backup was there from Cubo, Fred and Vote. Cubo's ultimate saving the life of Dardes, and now Zero's still under pressure, no Aegis, no life.
Cubo actually going to go ahead and clean up Zeros on his exit way from the T1 tower. A nice dive there from the Valhalla Valkyries. It looked like it was going to be a promising fight for them, but instead it gets turned in an instant. Great patience by Cubo on that Circuit ultimate. Just punishes Johnny the moment that he tries to and not only that, keep in mind, Neilmaw with this upgraded horrific emblem could put a real damper on these double hunter type compositions. And Johnny actually going to get caught out, forced with his beads, and just forced underneath his T1 tower yet again. But 40% HP, Oni Fury's free for the taking.
But the rotation comes in from Valhalla Valkyries, and Neilmaw uses the lurk in the water there. Johnny did use a lot though. The beads being down is going to cause a bit of a problem for him in the next engagement.
Decent sustain.
Again, but this is the same timing as the last time we saw an objective. Now it's going to be pressure for Johnny of where he can get him without his beads. Nika juked and knocked up by the shockwave. Oni Fury down to half. Nika frontlining, gets stunned out. Half health for Nika at the moment now. The whittle down from Valkyries has been good. Cataclysm comes out onto Neil Marr, and Neil could be in trouble after the dunk from Ducky, plucked away to safety. And Cubo Fred didn't like that idea as well. The Warriors have to turn tail, all at half health there. Meanwhile, the Valkyries in a good position.
An incredibly awkward grouping from the Warriors so far as Oni Fury continues to go down lower and lower. Valhalla Valkyries will secure, but Darda is looking for the cleanup after the fact. Oni Warriors choosing now to try and surround the likes of the Valhalla. Vote's going to get one onto Raffer and still looking for another. Ducky could very well be the next to fall, but Johnny might just wiggle away.
Yeah, Vote's hurting a lot and will get the kill. Meanwhile, Nika gets the kill on Johnny. As the Valkyries get the Fury, their team composition explodes as they all get a bit discombobulated based off what was going on. And now the Warriors find themselves, well, if you look at the graphs, you can see even though they lose the Fury, they still have a pretty good window there in terms of extended golden experience.
Well, Oni Warriors might be content to give up that Oni Fury if they're able to actually confirm this Fire Giant. And the main thing to point out is that was just incredibly awkward from the Oni Warriors to begin with. They were just letting Nika get free casted on by the Valhalla Valkyries. It didn't seem as though they were fully set up and in position to fight, so seemed like a little bit of miscommunication at the start, but they definitely brought it back together, took full advantage of the Valhalla Valkyries having to tank up that Oni Fury in such an awkward way as well. And
people to step up really and looking to use that Cataclysm if possible, but Warriors looking to split the difference now. Cubo to the left hand side, tier 2 tower in his sights as Warriors continue the pressure in mid.
Smart from Cubo, but could be dangerous for the Oni Warriors. Instead of Valhalla Valkyries, they'll opt to forfeit both these T2 towers, just rather take their engagements underneath the Phoenix, where arguably the fight would be best, especially with Raffer.
Look for the pluck again, instead of just fully committing.
They're just trying to see what relics Neil can force. And right now, it's primarily just been Johnny's Purification Beads or Ducky's Beads. And either or works out great for the Oni Warriors because, again, it's like you said, they don't have to force the commitment right away. You can take your time, especially when you have the Fire Giant advantage. And
Team 2, very much like a Soul Gem that we see on the side of Dardes here. We'll see if that goes in as Cubo blinks in on Johnny, but didn't find the kiss. Johnny read the situation well, and that blink down is now available, not available, I should say, for Cubo Fred. Both teams edging their bets in this one at the dance of the FG.
It's really just the leverage for ward positioning. Ducky can be the first one plucked in, and good damage, though, from Dardus through the Geb Shield of it all, but Neilmaw return damage as well from Valhalla Valkyries. His pre-win proc will be applying, but a nice blink initiation. It's all hell breaking loose.
Full focus on Johnny. His beads are down. Cuvo still going in, looking for the kiss if he can find it. It will. The shield, though, will prevent some of that damage as they all turn attention to Cuvo. Ducking the backside, taking on 4, just trying to buy time for the team. Does a great job of that, but the bad news is Valkyries couldn't find the pick onto Cuvo Fred. That was a good fight from Valkyries. They're in a much better state of affairs in terms of health bars. Relic situation, mainly invested from Raph and just the beads down from Johnny.
Unfortunately, it might not have been enough for the Valhalla Valkyries to get a clean pull onto this Fire Giant. Nika, having already found his way back to the objective, he'll just chill in solo lane, waiting for an opportunity to possibly look for another beads force, but good vision from the Valhalla Valkyries. They're bound to know that Nika is going to start making his approach, and the problem here, Hindu, is just trying to get a good clearing of vision in your team's favor, and the Oni Warriors have definitely struggled with doing so, and now that Fire Giant actually ticking over into the EFG territory.
Good point, because that will be a game ender almost for either side who takes this one now then. Ducky finds the stun on Nika on the front line. Nika trying to whittle down some health bars, causing confusion. Giving time for Dardus to just set up and force those tornadoes to cause damage. Johnny Dougal with no beats in the air. Raph Cataclysm does hit 2, but Cuvo to the back again, looking at Johnny. Great shield, but it won't be enough to prevent some of the damage coming through. Poison still ticking away as Ducky tries to cover him. Vote swoops on in, looks to for the kill on Johnny, and finds it on the tail end. Meanwhile, Dardus does also pick up Zeros, who is isolated. The whole of the Valkyries tried to protect Johnny, leave Zeros exposed, and now Warriors have a chance of the enhanced Fire Giant.
And Nika is just creating so many entryways for Cuvo to start applying pressure into that backline. Johnny not even getting an opportunity with the Tsukiyomi. Dardus actually zoning for his team right now. It doesn't even need to be that enhanced Fire Giant with 2 clean picks onto the Valkyries, and it really just boils down to Nika finding another nice blink initiation with this King Arthur. Cuvo having the immediate follow-up, and even through the Geb Shield, it's just too problematic with Cuvo on these cooldowns. That 40% just makes him so problematic with how wiggly he is.
Good kiss from Ducky. Cuvo then. Ultimate available again thanks to the Pridwin cooldown reduction. Ducky forced away. Ryan Phoenix under threat, and Amelito can only watch on as it falls. Warriors could have looked for the end there, potentially. Instead, they'll fall back, knowing there's a few seconds on respawn for Johnny and Zeros.
Prior to the engagement starting off, it's been him eating all of the punches so far, and eating all of the Valhalla Valkyries' prime cooldowns that they would like to use for immediate counter initiation. It's just all been about trying to peel this Suki, and even then they can't keep him alive. But with Nika now hovering on that right-hand side, could be a little bit of a pincer here onto Johnny underneath this mid-Phoenix.
Or even the left-hand side, because Nika's just walking the base, remember, too. Enhanced Oni Fire Minions, I should say, on the right-hand side, coming down 2 next. And if Johnny's getting taken out by Nika 1v1 at the back of the shop, the shield comes through to keep him alive. But all the while, this is giving the Warriors a time to get the left-hand Phoenix, time to get the middle Phoenix, and time for those minions on the right-hand side to whittle through. This could be game as Valkyrie's in trouble.
Great crits there onto Ducky, and he won't even get a chance to get peeled. Raffer is going to drop whatever he can as far as cooldowns are concerned, but it might be too little too late here. 2 members already dead for the Valhalla Valkyries. Looking to be a third. No, instead it's going to be the Titan focus out of the Oni Warriors as they claim game number 1.
Well, it took the 3.5 minutes, I would say, there for the Warriors to put that one to bed, but it was a good battle back and forth between the two. I'm not upset with how Valkyries played that. I think Warriors played it very, what's the word I'm really looking for here? Just cautiously.
They had the opportunity to remove the King Arthur from the board. They could have banned it. Instead, they banned Ullr. They could have picked it. Instead, they took Sun Wukong. It just felt like, to me, the Valhalla Valkyries have a lot of reliance on their draft. They know that this can work, but they're still struggling to find that 25-minute mark from even. Even when they were ahead, we saw them try and push their lead. You can't push a lead when Nika's rotating around like this, though. You gotta play around that solo laner. He absolutely makes his presence known in this one.
Yeah, almost disrespectful in my mind to ban the Ullr instead of the Arthur. To be like, yeah, we're cool with this happening to us. And Nika certainly made him pay. Vote having a really good game on this Chernobog as well. A fantastic slash line for him, a 10.5 KDA. Was really able to get involved in these team fights that were happening in mid. And when you're just willing to leave the Chernobog on the island, this is oftentimes what's going to happen to you. I mean, in the early to mid game, a lot of times you want to be taking the fight to the Chernobog. When you're fighting around mid instead, it's very easy for the Chernobog to affect that fight without Emilito being able to do so himself, and I think that's pretty well reflected here on the slash lines.
Completely agree. It's just concerning to me that the Valhalla Valkyries had such a good start to this one. It was legitimately one team fight flub, about 11 minutes into this one, completely cost them the rest of the match. It was a slight mechanical misplay. Zero's trying to finish off a kill at max range with his ultimate, goes down to the crouching ultimate. Well, there's a full health Tiamat right in your face, but they're not going to let that one go through.
Welcome back, Smite fans. Appreciate the patience as we are ready for Game 2 picks and bans. The Valkyries in that first pick position once again, and this is where they were last time. I think that the adjustments I expect to see might start early in the banning phase. I think that Tiamat or the Arthur, those are top pick potential here for the Valkyries.
Yeah, might as well get rid of it. Ducky has shown in the past that he's capable of playing the King Arthur, which is why I was so personally surprised to see the Sun Wukong come through in that first pick slot. So I think you're right to say that the adaptations can come early, but I'm not expecting King Arthur in the ban column. Maybe we see the Tiamat, wouldn't be overly surprised if we see the Tsukiyomi as well, but I want to see the Valkyries shift up their own picks a little bit more so.
Well, the Oni Warriors don't have a whole lot to worry about changing, right? They were able to find that Game 1 victory, so they banned the Giannis just like they did last time. It is still the same ban so far for the Valkyries in the Yemoja and the Ymir. Remember, it was Chiron in that third slot for them in that ban. We'll see if that's the direction they still want to go, but I don't expect the Warriors to change up a whole lot. And it is a ban switch, but it's not who we expected, Mifflin. It's Serket for Fred, who fell behind early and really didn't bring that much damage. I guess the CC was what they're concerned about.
There were a couple of fights where the poison was able to spread and maybe change how the outlook was for the Valkyries, but it is a weird targeted ban for me personally because, look, I don't think I'm saying anything the fans at home don't already know, but that game was Nika diff through and through 100%. King Arthur available yet again to the Valkyries, as is that Tsukiyomi, but it's not the Sun Wukong locked in this time. Instead, it's the Osiris. Could be a flex pick, could go into the jungle, could go into solo, but either way, could have been a King Arthur.
Could have been a King Arthur, could have been a Tiamat, could have been a Chiron. Those are three gods that I think are all... I just don't see a world where Osiris gets picked before those three gods, right? That's where my disconnect is here, is that the Valkyries, yeah, they're waiting to see what they want to do with their draft. That Ducky is almost certainly getting the short straw here, that they're getting they're top picking his god so that the rest of them can counterpick their matchups. But I just don't know what you're worried about picking King Arthur for. You know, why are you worried about picking King Arthur early in comparison to this Osiris? I don't know. We'll see. They clearly have a lot of respect for it. They banned it in the second phase in Game 1. So clearly they think this Osiris is pretty good, and we'll see what Ducky's able to do on it. As surprise, surprise, Dardes gets Tiamat again, and they get to get the Fenrir as well for either Fred or for Neil.
And here's another adaptation from the Valkyries, Zakro. Tsukiyomi locked in, and I don't think that reveals too much. Could go towards Johnny in the jungle, but still has the potential to be Osiris. We know Johnny loves playing these auto attackers out of the jungle, so I wouldn't be overly surprised if we see the God of the Afterlife there. I'm not sure that Ducky really is a huge proponent of the Tsukiyomi solo, though, and Tsukiyomi doesn't really have that flex potential in his support. So we will get a little bit more clarity on how this draft goes once we see Raffer's pick come through. But yet again, I just gotta think King Arthur's still out there, still available, still could have been taken. Osiris jungle, great flex. It would have made up a phenomenal front line, and then you could have facilitate zeros, which seems to be the strategy from the Valkyries through and through every single week. It's just a little bit of a head scratcher for me on this draft.
Yeah, Valk's throwing a bit of a curveball, but maybe that's what they need to throw, you know, because the Warriors are hitting fastballs right now, that's for sure. So maybe switching up the pace a little bit is the right idea. Xing Chen now for Raffer. Geb-esque in how well it peels, not quite as well, but still peels very well. Better initiator, I think, a lot of the time, and much more survivable than Geb.
Much stronger early game as well. He can actually get involved at level 3 once he has all three of those abilities available, the Skyhook, the Leap, as well as the Ferocious Roar. Going to make it very easy to play through that duo lane. Has phenomenal aggression, can really synergize well with his Tsukiyomi in mid, toss someone away, burn their beads, will all of a sudden Kusari Gamma because a much more large threat. The Piercing Moonlight's going to have decent targeting as well. This is a much more aggressive composition from the Valkyries. It's a huge departure from what we've seen from them in the last couple of weeks.
They had a pretty good start to the early game in Game 1, so, you know, there's a team that we talk about their late game. They started off pretty well. It was the mid game where they got tripped up. Maybe going for a little bit more early game makes some sense here. It seems like Voda's having a bit of a long think over what he wants to play. It's been Jingwei, Rom hovers, he ends up on the Chernobog. The Chiron's still open here, Miff, but not taken.
No, Chernobog had so much global presence in the last one. Gotta think he wants to do that yet again here. We haven't seen the Valkyries take their ADC pick either, so we could see the Soul come through if it's not banned out. Emilito has been loving this pick, has additional safety. Occasionally, he'll go towards the Jingwei as well, and I think that could serve them relatively well, but I'd like to see something more aggressive, something more in line with what has already come through here from the Valkyries draft. If Chiron makes it through, I want to see Emilito take it.
Yeah, Chiron could be a really good pick for them. And Neath is still open as well for Zeros if they want to go that type of direction, but the Warriors are a little bit more worried about his potential Morrigan, as the Valkyries finally put some due respect on Nika's King Arthur and ban it away. They don't pick it for themselves, which is fine, but they make sure that Nika doesn't get it again, and I'm happy with this compromise, I think.
Yeah, as long as Nika isn't just doing it to him again, right? It's a great adaptation. Tsukiyomi already removed from the table, so harken back to that interview with Ducky again. Those were the two gods he was concerned about. Maybe he didn't stand up for his drink this time around and was at least able to have his way in P's and B's. But that adaptation already of the Soul ban, I think, is going to put a huge damper on what the Valkyries are going for. They're already slightly physical heavy.
Yes.
They want to pick a standard mage. Zeros has been really liking that pick out of mid. That's gotta irk them a little bit.
Yeah, if they want to go Neath, I mean, you're looking at Kronos, which Vote tried to play yesterday, didn't go super well. Freya, Olarun, I mean, those are your magical hunters still left. Don't know exactly where Emel's going to go if those are the options. Of course, is Kronos legendary, but not sure. I'm not very convinced on the strength of that pick right now. But how about Apollo, a god that we really did not see a lot of in Phase 1 after his dominance at the end of Season 7. I think Apollo is probably still a little bit underrated. Transcendence really good. Apollo likes to build that. Apollo Merlin's a pretty decent backline to pair together here, Miff. I think that the Valkyries solidified this draft pretty well in the bottom two.
No, I like this a lot. We were getting out-rotated from the duo lane pretty consistently because that Chernobog, well, Apollo's got to the sky. Going to be able to chase him down pretty easily. And the burn potential that the Valkyries were bringing to objectives, maybe not as much so in Game 2, but still definitely has a lot of it. This Merlin's going to shred Gold Fury's Pyromancers.
Next week, which is use this Vines to stack that passive up for a bit of a quicker speed, attack speed, and clear thanks to Apollo's passive. Meanwhile, in the solo lane, Nika and Ducky both starting off with this Rangdar's build. Is that going to stick around next week, you reckon, or is this like a 1 week special now?
It could potentially.
Really?
I think it's almost anything goes whenever the boots patch removal actually comes into play. More importantly, though, the Rain to Start does make it so that it'll be a really aggressive solo lane between Nika and Ducky might even get the better end of it for the start at least, just because Guan Yu having to invest a little bit more into the melee range clear, and that's where Ducky can find some advantages. But Emilito, Rafford, stalemate so far over in duo between this Xingtian and Apollo.
Jump in mid lane from Cuvo Fred, and funny enough, when I saw Cuvo Fred taking this Fenrir in this game when I first saw it drafted, I was expecting that to go towards Neilmar at first. So I do like the kind of adaptation from Warriors almost, the rope-a-dope with, actually it's Fenrir jungle, not in the support position, and bringing in this Kuzumbo. How do you feel about that?
Kuzumbo's more of a niche pick, and I think that's why it works so well here for the Oni Warriors, because, well, hold that thought, Cubo could be in some trouble. Health will fall incredibly low to that Blizzard. A nice stun lock from Johnny on the Tsukiyomi, and that's definitely going to make it a little bit more problematic for Cubo in this early game. Johnny might have the potential to actually invade his back harpies with Cubo's HP falling so low.
2 games in a row then, though. Johnny's just finding a bit of a better advantage in the early stages of the game, these level 2, level 3 trades towards the mid lane. But Cubo can resustain, obviously, health potions available. He's back in the jungle and perfectly fine now as we tune back into the support lane, I should say, with both of them going blink this time round on the Kuzumbo, as Neil will push Rafa into a bit of danger. But Rafa got a lot of tank in his vote, will dash in, however, aggressively with a full minion wave. Emilito to slow that down with his use of the stun.
It didn't seem as though that hook slam actually connected with anyone either, so Rafa may be a little bit more fortunate that Vote didn't have the crystallized curses available just yet. I believe it just came back up off cooldown, and that's the problem as well for Rafa. He's a type of build defender. We've also seen a lot of those ability, more cooldowns focus, a little bit more initiation and setup type of ability. Nika, though, could be in some trouble. Lord of the Afterlife will be expended, but Spike Caltrops is not enough.
I'll tell
damage.
You, just as he used that cavalry charge there, he started to spin to the right, and I was like, he's going to go back in here. He's a madman.
I definitely think Devos is still the way to go if you want outright sustain and crit potential.
I guess in a way, if you want to take a boxing match what's favorable in terms of sustain options, right, versus raw power that you'll get from the Transcendence and cooldown reduction, Johnny going to get whipped around the corner. His beads on cooldown from the last engagement. Great little play from Neilmar individually. And the swoop, there it is from Vote straight away. Make sure that Zeros can't get in the action. Rafa's going to have to force to use the ultimate. Gets the beads out of Vote. But the follow-up is there from the Warriors too. Emelito crashing in, looking for a kill. Can't find Cubo at the tail end. Will stun Neilmar and a good bit of damage onto Neil. One more tower shot could do it. But it won't come through in time. Warriors find 2 kills on a swoop to the mid lane.
Those reinforced Greaves, just an absolute nuisance when actually trying to punish supports, even when they're underneath your T1 tower. And poor Melito, he just wasn't there as fast as Vote. Living Nightmare, just instantaneous.
Double kill! No,
nice
just the one. Vote just waits around long enough to realize the backs were coming through. That's happened a couple of times in this one. I feel the Warriors are definitely cheeky flankers, I want to say, with how game 1 went. They were doing it there and doing it again this time round. Warriors grasp. But Nika in the area and the rest of the team not really in position to help out now, trying to farm up their own jungle. This is Warriors fighting a small win off the back of the engagement in mid lane. And that's a big thing. I used to always say it's stuff after the stuff. It took a bit of time there for the Warriors to find it, but they do so. And now Rafa trying to step into the jungle and slow down the rotation back. As we look at the second item, I'm looking at the relic situation too, but wait a second, Nico on the right side, a little bit too deep here. We'll have to ult defensively. Oh, Willie came down off early. This is setting Nika up, sorry, Johnny up for a nice little play. Nika could end up dying here from this decision he made by turning around to deal some damage. I was looking across the map of like, was he buying time for the team? Awkward decision from Nika there for me.
Nika could have definitely survived, and the Oni Warriors could have still pulled that Gold Fury. A little bit questionable with that cavalry charge, but he knows better than we do. He's the one playing it. Rafa going to disengage this Gold Fury pool. Emelito trying to find Cubo. Fred will kill him with the Chariot outright. So a nice power play advantage now swings into Valhalla Valkyries' favor. Oni Warriors just bit off a little bit more than they could chew there with that Gold Fury pool.
Do you not just pull gold there then, if you're Valkyries at that moment? Hang on a second, Dart is in mid. Doesn't realize Johnny was behind him. He'll find out now. No Piercing Moonlight available this time around for Johnny though. And he will give as good as he gets. Zero's trying to follow up and keep the pressure rolling onto Dardes, who will limp back to his tier 1 tower.
Straight line cavalry charged out of there.
It happens, you know.
It happens, but it's those moments where when the Valkyries, if they get map pressure.
Yeah. It would have been a non-issue if they would have got the Fury the first time round, but look at this, the window of opportunity is there once again for the Oni Warriors. Just walk back to the pit after they all respawn, and nobody on the Valhalla Valkyries are around. Right, really, from Warriors looking for an opportune moment. Meanwhile, Ducky is solo and Pyromancer here, right in front of Cuvo Fred. And Rafa is going to find Cuvo and start to keep him at bay. And whittle down that health bar already. Guan Yu on the way from Nika in the solo lane now, but too little too late, as Valhalla Valkyries use Ducky's build to their advantage. Highest in the game, and Johnny just joined them now to hit level 20 as well. So you can see when these solo laners come into the fray, they might be a bit surprised by how much damage they're getting hit for, with how well everybody else has been able to farm across the map. But both teams now starting to group up around the Oni Fury. Johnny a little bit late to the party, but look at Neilmar swooping round the back. Blinking from Rafa. Engagement from Warriors at the same time to avoid the ultimate. Now Rafa's under pressure at the same time as Ducky's looking to keep Cuvo busy. All the while, Neilmar has got Zeros and Johnny pinned back. And Zeros could die on his own. Cuvo Fred, meanwhile, have the same issue with Emelito and Ducky. But Ducky can't find the kill in time. Neil will get that kill on 1v2 on the backside there, up against Zeros and Johnny. Meanwhile, the zoom in from Vote now swooping back, and Ducky's still too deep and on his own.
A nice primordial onslaught. The good Children's of Creation placement's going to catch Ducky out, and the separation more so of the Oni Warriors breakdown throughout that team fight. Rafa blinking into the middle of nowhere. Everyone else from Oni Warriors, one of the downsides of that whirlwind ultimate for the Xingtian, it takes a while to channel, and Rafa just unable to connect with anyone. Oni Warriors completely ignore him for the most part. The fact that Neilmar, though, is able to just one-man chase Zero the whole way through this entire engagement.
Production's doing a solid here, but we can see exactly what he's doing here.
He gets his relics. He gets to harass him. There's nothing that Zeros can do, because his form of peels and escape is only going to kill him through that shell spikes. Yeah. No, like Zeros cannot be left out like that.
And he really, in a way, he wasn't. He had Johnny with him, but what can Johnny do? Cubo Fred now looking at Emelito. Emelito will get his ultimate off quick time and get away. He had no beads or Aegis that time round. Johnny forced to save the fight, but now Ducky and Rafa on the rotation. Now the tether goes off from Ducky there, and Cuvo slips away from that, so won't be stunned. Vote turns up though and starts to whittle down Ducky's health bar. Meanwhile, Neilmar causes wasn't a problem for Johnny, bringing him towards the carries. Hills her into the air onto Neil Mar, but Nika in the backline now gets hold and kills Johnny, and the cavalry charges on for Zeros. Beats down again. Aegis not up for another few seconds, so that's a kill onto Zeros, and now Nika's looking for his triple. Won't find it as Rafa gets away, but you can just see how well this front line from Warriors has become.
It's just so chaotic for the Valhalla Valkyries. Yet again, they are just being forced to look in several different directions at once because of all this dive potential that the Chernobog and the Guan Yu were able to create. And Oni Warriors, they don't even need a Fire Giant with a 2-man down advantage. They're just going to look to take this best Phoenix outright.
And take a carry with them, or rather a support. Rafa should end up dying here at the tail end and will do so. Carry charge back up from Nika again, and that secures a kill for Cubo Fred. Right-hand side, Amelito did split push for a tier 2 tower and get it earlier.
That might be game.
But with Neil Mar falling back here, I think Neil can just keep him in combat the whole time and not have to worry. Meanwhile, the Warriors, as you said, are looking to close out Game 2 in under 25 minutes. You called it. We farmed for a good 20 minutes, one team fight, and that'll just be the end of the game in favor of the Warriors.
Ironically, this is the one time the Valkyries don't want a game that goes at that pace. They want to expedite it a little bit this time around with this draft, and unfortunately for them, we're not quite able to do it. But look, man, we were worried about it on the desk, and I think it shows itself in the match. How were the Valkyries ever supposed to get towards that Tiamat, towards that backline from the Warriors? They just couldn't.
They just couldn't. And look at Neil on this dive. I mean, he takes a 2v1 up against a level 20 Tsukiyomi and a Merlin, and he won it. He kills Zeros here, gets a really, really good zone there from him. And this Kuzenbo, we don't see it that often, but ends up working out for him. Nika on this Guan was also fantastic. Definitely a different look for the Oni Warriors, but that's kind of best case scenario, right? Is you're able to come in with a slightly different look at a draft and still look this good.
Man, I really liked what the Oni Warriors were able to do in this one. They knew exactly what their strengths were. I think they were saying the exact same things we were. Yo, you're good on this Tiamat, bro. Don't sweat a single thing once we get into the Team 5 phase, and that's exactly how it pans out. In particular, the Oni Warriors did a really good job switching off who was initiating those fights. Neil Ma takes that 2v1, and then just a couple seconds later, he has to tag out at about a quarter HP, so who's in there for him? Well, it's Nika. Cavalry charged right back in. You thought you were out of the blender. You're not. The Oni Warriors just keep hitting him with the mix-ups.
Look, Neil did 11,000 damage. That's more than anyone on the Valkyries, except for Ducky, who's playing solo lane, so you can count that damage however you want it. Yeah, I'm not counting it is what I'm saying. Impressive showing from Neil on that Kuzenbo, but for the entirety of the Oni Warriors, especially to bounce back after yesterday's set not going their way.
No, yeah, unfortunate in general, but we got to sing the praises, bud. The Oni Warriors popping off. I think in particular, Cubo Fred as well does really well today. He has been struggling a little bit in the regular season. Not anymore. It seems like he's really found his footing. Gets the Surcat Respect Band in Game 2. I think that the Oni Warriors and all their fans can feel pretty confident for how Phase 2 is going to go for them.
2-0 here today over the Valhalla Valkyries, bouncing back after the 2-0 defeat yesterday in the hands of the Olympus Bolts. So, of course, you can take a quick look ahead. We've got the Solar Scarabs and Tartarus Titans coming up later on today, and Titans, Kings, Dragons, Scarabs coming at you tomorrow, of course, starting at 1 p.m.